everybody, this is Inverted Vantage, demoing a concept movement system for Skykick. The movement system, to anybody who's played Homeworld, will sound pretty similar at first, but I think there's enough differences in here to make it pretty interesting. The biggest similarity, the thing that we start off with, is the movement disk. This is a plane on the XZ axis. XZ axis in Moto. This is, so like, let's say you have your unit selected that you want to move, and you hit M, and you want to move it, say, like, to this point. So you would move your mouse here, and then hold Shift and drag it down to create the Y depth. And you can simulate this in Moto here. Homeworld uses Shift. I don't see any reason to use something different, but we'll see what happens if we ever get a prototype running. So that's the general idea with this. The biggest difference in the movement disk you can see is that it's cut in half. Instead of a 180 degrees, instead of 360 degrees, it's only 180. This is because the idea is the plane is always going to have some forward momentum, so you're not going to be able to really, in one turn from this point facing the other direction. I mean, you can go down and end up here and facing that way, but you're not going to end up back here. So let's say you want to move, over this direction. You want to move right here, and you want to move down to here. The biggest difference, and this is where the big difference with Skykick comes in, we're trying to simulate what it's like, for the aircraft to actually have momentum, to not be able to perform certain turns because of lifts and stalls. So the idea is, I came upon the idea of using a secondary movement disk that acts as a point, or rather a place where you put your point. Let me just move it up and down. The idea is that you would click on this line here, or click on the spline to drag it back and forth, and wherever it is, it will create a spline point. I'm thinking that you will only get one spline point to manipulate. I think that more than that is asking for trouble. I guess we'll see it in playtesting, but I'm pretty sure it'll only end up being the beginning point, the end point, and the midpoint. So what you start with is you have your start point, you set your end point, and then you move this to where you want your midpoint to be. And I'm just going to put it 50%. And from that, then, you get a spline that you're able to edit. And I imagine that while you're maneuvering this, it'll be updating live to try and get, basically it does the most direct path from your aircraft to the endpoint you selected, taking into account the aircraft's forward momentum and how fast it can change. This is also scaled down slightly. It'll actually probably be out here, just because you can't really do a turn this sharp, at least not often unless you're going really slow. So the way this would work is so I've got my spline, and let's assume that it would be all the way out here a little bit, something like that, right? So the plane's going to kind of swoop down, and then it'll go to this endpoint. Well, what if I want something a little bit... What if I want it to come down, like, through here? So I want it to come swoop down that way. So I would use this secondary movement disk. Let me edit this so it's not so curly. So there we go. So I'd use this secondary movement disk, and in that way, I can adjust not only the angle that the plane's going to take, or rather the flight path the plane's going to take, but since the plane flies along the normal of this, so the up vector for that is the up vector of that, so it rotates all the way around, by manipulating this, I also manipulate which direction the plane is facing at the end of the turn. So if it's up here, the plane's going to be facing down. If it's down here, the plane's going to be facing straight out. But you can see how this movement disk really comes into play here. Some other things that'll be playing in are the idea of ghosting. The faster the plane's going, the more spread out the ghosts are. The slower the plane's going, the more bunched up they are. So, for instance, they'd be bunched up pretty heavily here, and they'd be bunched up slightly here, but out here they'd start to extend. And the other idea is that those ghosts would show, like, for instance, this in the actual game, this turn here would probably be too tight. So this ghost would ghost, and then all of a sudden it kind of like a little exclamation point, and then all the ghosts after that stop to show that that's too tight. So you'd have to manipulate this outwards like that to get a much outwards like this to get a much smoother curve, and then be like, okay, I can do that. So that's the general concept for it. I am welcome to all suggestions and any help in the project. I need everything from concept art to coding to modeling to writing. This is just a quick idea so far. If you have any comments, criticisms, suggestions, or ideas, let me know. If you'd like to talk to us or if you'd like to join, please visit our game page on ModDB. That's moddb.com/game/Skykick.